Welcome everyone to season 4, episode 132 of the Premier Pod. I'm your host, Yash Pika, joined by my co-host, Tyler Chan. And in this episode, kind of a shorter one just because we just came off a international break. Semi-exciting, also semi kind of meh because it's international break and no one really enjoys international break, except if you're a U.S. men's national team fan. They did beat Mexico 2-0, beat them 2-0. Christian Pulisic throwing some shade at Mema Ochoa of Mexico, but, that's for the U.S. audience right there. But um, some decent news or less exciting news came out in the Premier League during this international break. We saw Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not get fired. He still has a job, probably will have his job for the rest of the season. As we mentioned in last week's episode, Steven Gerrard or Gerrard got his job at Aston Villa, leaving Rangers. But Aston Villa's former coach Dean Smith ended up getting the Norwich City job, which at a time, or I would say last week, it was rumored that Frank Lampard might get the position, but Lampard eventually just turned it down. I think there was disagreements on, I guess, the outlook of the club, or maybe Lampard wanted some extra funds, and Norwich weren't really, willing to pocket. Who knows? Disagreements went down, and Lampard ended up not taking the job. Is now still, out as a free agent as a coach, but Dean Smith took the job, and now he's tasked with basically taking a team that's a definition of a yo-yo club and helping them stay in the Premier League. He did it with Aston Villa 2 seasons ago, but this team does not have a Jack Grealish. This team has Timo Pukki, and that's about it.
And even that Aston Villa side had to get a little bit of help from the officials during
Oh
that
yeah, from the Project
season,
Restart.
their Project Restart. Because there's one goal that literally went into the goal, and then VAR couldn't see it because it was just covered completely by the body of a player, which I've never seen before. I didn't know goal line technology could ever fail, but apparently, if you just cover the ball with an entire human body, you can't tell. Like the AI or like the computer's like, where's the ball? I can't even tell.
Can't tell.
So that literally saved them because the margins to stay in the league were so small that
Yeah,
Villa stayed in the Premier League just because of kind of mistakes
yeah,
like
and
that.
Sheffield actually got relegated because of
Yeah,
that.
so it's a
They stayed up
slippery
that season,
slope.
but next season the toll of not making in the top half of the Premier League caught up to them. They ended up getting relegated next
Mhm.
season.
So, I mean, we'll see if Dean Smith can get some cheese into that Norwich City side because I mean, this team is on a nosedive back to the championship, and usually that's how they always are. Like going back from the past few seasons, it's as you mentioned, it's a yo-yo club. They just win the championship, like first place typically, and then they just go straight back down 20th place in the Premier League. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dean Smith is just you know, the conductor of their ride back down to the championship, and they're just kind of being prepared to have a decent coach for the next season in the championship with Dean Smith because he's all right, but you know I still think there's no saving this club. It's just gonna get relegated,
Yeah.
100%.
No, I agree 100% with that. I think, what you said is actually pretty true because Dean Smith, he was with Aston Villa when they were in the championship and brought them back up to the Premier League. He's a good coach. Even Jack Grealish, when he got fired from Aston Villa, when Dean Smith got fired from Aston Villa, Jack Grealish tweeted out some words in support of his coach. And as you know, Jack Grealish and Dean Smith had a really good relationship. They were, you know, very, very, they worked well with each other. And obviously, Grealish ended up leaving for City because bigger opportunity, but still a mutual respect from each other. So it seems like Dean Smith got along well with all of his players, was a good players manager. So, I mean, that's good for Norwich. Maybe next season when they're trying to get back into the Premier League, and then maybe they can rebuild from there. But as things stand now, I agree with you that I don't think they are particularly good enough to stay in the Premier League. Not with this given squad, and not just yeah. I just don't think they're good enough because they're the definition of a yo-yo club, and that's what's going to end up happening again for Norwich.
You can basically put that toast rating right there. It's like it's only November,
Yeah,
but
it's written
it's
on the
gonna
wall.
be it's written on the wall. It's written in the stars. The
Yeah,
Canaries are going down.
yeah. I mean, I
But
honestly, we at this point, you should just lock in a bet every time they get back into the Premier League. Just put $100 down for them to get relegated, and I feel like you would be up. You'd probably be a millionaire at this point, right? If you put
this
enough
is
money
not
down.
financial advice, by the way. Don't sue us.
But I feel like at this point you're just gonna be, you're literally just gonna be on a high. I mean, it's just amazing how they just keep going. They come back up and then they go back down. They come back
then
up
it,
and then go back down. It just have they stayed in the Premier League for more than one season? It's just
I don't
baffling.
think so. I mean, then again, we have to see Vegas's odds because if we're anticipating it, I mean, Vegas should probably anticipate it too. So
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe you put in 100, you only get like $25 back.
it's like
So
two
I don't
cents.
know.
You get two
Yeah,
cents
two
back.
cents in return. The odds are like 1 to 1.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right. But I mean, I do want to quickly mention though that, after Norwich is getting the Aston Villa manager, there's been a lot of talks this week also that I've just been reading where Steven Gerrard, the new Aston Villa manager, has a lot on his plate than like originally anticipated because,
Mm,
we kind of mentioned last week he came from a Rangers side that didn't really have that much competition with him because in the Scottish Premier League, as we mentioned, it's really
yeah,
just a
Celtic.
two-horse race. And his win rate is kind of inflated. It's kind
Mm,
of at the 64% rate. So it's like because in soccer you can include draws and losses into the record. So he wins 64% of his games. So he kind of said it himself. This is like a big risk for his own career, whether or not it'll kind of benefit him because he's coming in with a lot of expectations. It turns out where they're gonna see if they can win out and try to get into Europa League or something like that at least. So that's kind of surprising to hear. Like
yeah.
first season in is like, all right, we're setting the bar high and
I mean, they did
anything.
invest a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's also the Prince's team, the Prince's favorite team from England. So I mean, I guess you can't let the Prince down, but at the same time, I feel like from just doing anything from work or just anything in life, it's just you never set the bar high. You always set it kind of low and then overproduce or like over
Overachieve.
deliver. Yeah, overachieve. So it's kind of risky from him because like,
Yeah,
what if he gets fired? Then it's like all those rumors is like, oh, he could be the next Liverpool coach. He could be the next manager after Klopp one day. Yeah, that
but
kind of just goes out the window.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I'm sure he factored that risk in it, but I think for him, he. I mean, we talked about this last week, but if he didn't take this job, it's almost like, can you really trust him to give him a really high profile job, knowing that he was just at Rangers the whole time? That's kind
True.
of one of those career moves where it's going to be a bit of a risk because there's a lot of uncertainty. But if it works out, it works out. But obviously, if it doesn't, you're kind of left in the dust almost. Um, but I know I saw a report today that on Stevie G at least that apparently he's banned ketchup from all the cafeteria and everything from Aston Villa. I know a lot of managers have actually done that when it comes to certain items or food items, like maybe ketchup or hot sauce or something like that. Um, Obviously, we're not. I'm not a food nutritionist, but if you ever look at a normal just ketchup bottle and some of the ingredients, there's a lot of added sugar to it. Obviously, you can get the no, less sugar or no sugar added, but I think there are some sketchy ingredients in ketchup that maybe when you're a nutritionist, maybe you can go in and do the science and see specifically what affects players' bodies. So maybe Steven Gerrard sees that, and maybe he's just like, the move is to get away from the ketchup so that we can focus on playing at our most peak performance or having the players at their peak levels of performance all day, every day.
That's the title right there. Stevie G hates ketchup. I don't know. That sounds like some old people stuff that like just randomly they just say. You don't know where they got that fact from. It's just like, yeah, ketchup leads to cancer or something like that. And it's like you should probably not eat it. But I mean, I think it kind of more stems to just kind of instilling this kind of discipline where it's like, all right, we're just gonna be healthy, be
Yeah,
in like peak performance,
even
and
even
maybe that's what he's
Xavi
put it in.
even Xavi, when he came back, now that he's Barcelona's manager, I think there was a 10 commandments that he put out that no player can be late. Every player has to arrive 30 minutes early for training. If any player is late, they get fined. Um, certain things like that. Even with the diet, he was very specific about. So I think we're starting. Every big manager, they obviously have these rules in place, but I think when you come to a club that's been a little bit shaken up or a little bit not performing at their best, I think it's good to have these rules because then it will kind of really tell you at least firsthand, at least for Stevie G, who are the players that worth keeping. Like who are the players that are going to be worth keeping going forward, or who are the players that I can trust, or who should be like on the short list to get sold, even though they are a talented player, but they're not following the rules, type thing.
Mm, kind of bringing the discipline back to
Hmm.
all these teams that have been kind of in shambles, especially Barcelona. Oh,
Yeah.
geez. I watched El Clasico this past season too, and I was like, "Man, this is not the same."
Yeah,
And we're seeing Luke De Jong start for Barcelona.
yeah,
What
it's
the heck? You
yeah,
had Messi
La Liga was
at one
La Liga's a
point.
mess. Yeah,
Mhm.
you had Messi and Ronaldo at one point.
So now all these players that we used to see in all these big competitions, big matches, now are the managers, and I'm always
Mhm.
wondering, it's like, maybe they can just sub themselves in.
They'll probably do better than half the starting 11 if they go in.
Maybe. I don't
Stevie G
like, I
running the
feel like
midfield.
Xavi would yeah, I feel like Xavi would still do pretty good, like
Mhm.
Stevie G in that Aston Villa midfield if, poop hits the fan. It's like we need to snag a goal back. Usually he's pretty clutch, so,
Just take a
I mean,
long
just
shot.
yeah, so you never know. But that's the thing about international break. Like all these teams kind of had these big revamps, like Aston Villa, Norwich, Barcelona, and then all these new managers came in, and all these players left to play for their countries, and they come back and it's like, oh, like a whole new culture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the players kind of adapt to it. But I guess going back to your original point with Dean Smith, yeah, we both think that he's not going to be the one that will take them or lead them to glory. Think it will just probably be another championship fight for next season for them. But um, wanted to quickly pivot. Not a new manager, but I think this news happened last week. It was to be expected because, as we know, with the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, um, we obviously know the schedule is actually going to be played in the middle of the league season, so they're going to be playing it during the winter time or early winter time during the World Cup. So it's going to be a little odd because, as we all know, we are used to the World Cup being in the summer, in the June, July months, kind of that time for summer football. But this time it's going to be the middle of the season, and the Premier League announced that it'll be a break from November 12th to December 26th to allow time for the World Cup. Uh, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes because not to mention once you finish up the World Cup, the league season has to pick back up again. And now you're going to have players that if they had an emotional high of the World Cup, maybe they start becoming world beaters, or maybe you have a top player that got, to the World Cup final, got his heart broken, and then all of a sudden he's no longer the same player we once saw. So it'll be very interesting to see the emotions and the fatigue level and everything that goes along with it that plays into this 2022 season, which is going to be a really weird one for all the leagues, even La Liga, Bundesliga, Premier League, all the big leagues across the world.
it's gonna be so weird to see because like there's certain players that were born out of the World Cup, like they gained their fame from the World
Yeah,
Cup. Like
James.
James Rodriguez. Like that's probably like one of the biggest ones that we can think of just off the top of our heads, and that's really the only time he really boomed.
Yeah, I
So
mean, Luka Modric was always really good, but 20 that World Cup really. I mean, that's why he won the Ballon d'Or that year. It's
that's
because of
also
that World
true.
Cup run. But we've seen players kind of come up in the starlight, and Mbappe really like put his foot on the mantle as I'm one of the best youngsters out there with his World Cup. I mean, yeah, like you said, James Rodriguez. But then you also see players solidify their legacy as legends. With Zidane winning a World Cup, and then Ronaldinho and that Brazil squad winning World Cups. Um, I mean, that's kind of the glory of the World Cup. You see legends be formed, or you see youngsters becoming stars in front of our eyes, or you see these new guys come out of nowhere. It's the beauty of
Or you see sad boy hours, you see David Luiz crying in the
it.
7-1 against Germany. I mean, you can it's a
Like
whole
Mario
drama.
Götze, like players that have the one-off moment, but then never really live up after that moment. You have like Julian
Yeah, that's
Green of
also
the
true. Yeah.
U.S. men's national team. Yeah, players like that.
And what's interesting in this is that usually that's all at the end of the season. Like they have a little bit of time to mentally switch. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
season's ended, go work with the team, go train, and then go into the World Cup. And now, since the World Cup is going to be in the middle of the winter, or I guess in this case in the beginning of winter, but it's gonna be in the middle of the season for at least the regular season for the Premier League, La Liga, all
yeah,
those leagues. So basically, it's gonna be mid-season form for all these players. So right now, if Salah went, he'd be insane because right now he's one of the best players in the world just based on form and his statistics, and like Benzema right now as well.
hmm
So like those little hot streaks, we can start to maybe see a little ahead of time going into next season where if we see at the beginning of the season, like we see certain players going off, it's like, oh, they might actually do all right in the World Cup. And then maybe you see certain players are kind of cold. then that actually might affect the World Cup
Like
too.
Harry Kane has been doing okay with England, but they haven't played the most good competition. But I mean, Harry Kane, first week of the season or the first month of the season, and he comes to England, that's a big risk for England. Then all of a sudden, of course, you're going to still pick Harry Kane, but then Gareth Southgate is like, who do I play now? Do I play the striker in form or do I play Harry Kane and hope that he picks up his form during the World Cup? But you don't have a lot of time to kind of move around and toy with things during the World Cup.
You kind of just have to just win out
Hmm.
because it's not that many games you have to win to get
Yeah,
to the final. But from all these international breaks that we have been experiencing, it's all kind of going towards World Cup qualifiers, and that's why you see in the news it's like, oh, Serbia qualified, like, oh, big news, and then or like Canada just beat Mexico in a qualifier.
yeah.
So like it's like 4 years in the making, which is why it's also such a big deal for all these players to even make it, or
Hmm.
to see a team not make it at all. Like one year, Netherlands didn't make it, Italy
Yeah,
didn't make
Italy
it.
didn't make it.
So
US didn't make it.
yeah, US,
Yeah.
US.
So,
Uh,
but I think what's also interesting is that since it's in the middle of the season, like you said, form, this could be the World Cup where you see a lot of top players maybe not make their World Cup squad because they're so out of form. Because,
oh,
with the World Cup being at the end of the summer, like you said, it gives those players that extra couple months to maybe do something to impress the manager. I mean, we saw Jesse Lingard last season where that whole entirety of last season, it looked like he was nowhere going to be anywhere close to the England squad. He finally picked up his performances with West Ham, got a call up to the preliminaries for or for England. Ultimately didn't make the final Euro squad, but at least he gave himself a fighting chance. Now that the World Cup is in the middle of the season, what if a player such as Jesse Lingard or a similar player of that ilk out of form, that's their shot. That's like their shot blown of missing the World Cup, and that's kind of the interesting part that's going to be played there. But it also leaves room for certain players. I think in the 2014 World Cup for Germany, I think Marco Reus, he didn't make the squad because he picked up an injury. I think later into the season, but if the World Cup was in the middle of the season, he would have been part of that World Cup squad. So
mhm.
it can kind of go either way. So it'll be very interesting to see. What if you pick up a nasty injury in the middle of the season? Then you know your chances of making the World Cup are gone. So because you can't get recovered. So very, very interesting stuff or scenarios that could pop up now.
Yeah, and I don't remember if any World Cup has kind of been in the scenario too, where it's just in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
don't
it's
think it
already shady
has.
enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's already shady enough that it's in Qatar. Because I was just talking to Yash, I was like, it'd be great to go see the World Cup, but I don't know if I'd want to go in 2022.
Yeah. Maybe in
It's
2026 once it's in US, Canada,
yeah,
and
the US would
Mexico.
be easier. It'll probably come to Atlanta, so that'll make
Yeah.
it a little easier for
Finals in New Jersey, which will be fun.
New Jersey.
Yeah, MetLife Stadium.
What the
That's where the final is going to be, World Cup final for 2026.
No offense to New Jersey, but
That'll be
MetLife
crazy.
Stadium,
MetLife is a
where
pretty
the
big
Giants
stadium.
play, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty big stadium, so it'll be fun to see it there. But yeah, it's gonna be fun when the World Cup is in North America for Canada. It's gonna be in Canada, Mexico, and US for the
Mm.
2026 run. I have to get World Cup tickets. We have to.
Yeah,
I have
me
to
too.
see. There's no way. It's in our territory. But there's no way we're gonna leave without getting at least one World Cup ticket.
I gotta see at least one, like 2 games or
Yeah,
something.
it's
I
like
don't know.
you end up seeing Serbia versus Sweden in like group last match of the group stage, and both teams are not gonna make it to the knockout stage.
We're just like roasting everyone. It's like we're roasting New Jersey, roasting Serbia and Sweden, but and then me roasting the MetLife Stadium. But man, I don't know. There's so many like good stadiums that have been recently built. I would think like the SoFi Stadium in LA would be one of like the good picks, like the
Yeah,
Rams Stadium. That's in, or
I
like
I
Rams and
think
Chargers.
I think they probably pick New Jersey because of the East Coast time zone. Because I think the West Coast
Oh,
it would kind of screw people over in the Europe, especially in
well, just
Europe.
come to
Because
Atlanta then.
I
We got the Benz.
don't know, we'll see. But yeah, that's part of the reason the World Cup in Russia, all the matches were played in the morning time. Because you remember in the Brazil World Cup, at least for the U.S. in the U.S. audience, all the games were kind of played later in the afternoon or kind of late at night to kind of you know be with that time zone.
Hmm.
So I guess it just comes with the territory of you know if it's early you have to be there or be up early to watch it, or if it's late depending on the time zone you just got to do what you got to do to support your team.
That's true, man. I remember having to wake up at 6 a.m. to watch like a France versus Australia game. in the last World Cup, but yeah, basically you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
I'm excited for just a World Cup in general, but we're already getting ahead of ourselves. We're talking about 2026. We got
yeah.
2022 to still get
22,
through,
yeah.
and
She, but it's coming up closer than, it's coming up soon. It's coming up
yeah,
really soon, so
and we'll get more in depth kind of coverage and kind of talk about it a little bit more. Probably closer to next year, like
yeah.
around March when the
Yeah, when
playoffs
the
are done,
yeah,
all
for
the
the
teams are
qualifiings.
seeded. Yeah,
Mhm.
all the teams are in because right now there's 19 teams in, and
Well, there's
they're
19
mostly
spots to 19 spots
oh
left.
yeah, 19
Yeah.
spots left.
Mhm.
But most of the teams that are in are from Europe, and then a couple from
Yeah.
South America.
Brazil and Argentina, the South American teams in, and then yeah, pretty much all of that is just it's all Europe and then Qatar, obviously, since they're the host country. So they get the automatic bid.
I wonder how Qatar's gonna do. Will they score a goal?
Hey, that's wasn't Russia in that same problem? Like, if will Russia finally score a goal? Or
Well, I mean, we can name one Russia player. A Russian player. I'll say that.
yeah, Akinfev.
Yeah, Akinfeev. You got. I don't know if Jakoyev still plays, or we can probably name like
Who else? Trying to think. Who's that
Mario
right
Fernandez
back?
count. Yeah, Mario
Yeah,
Fernandez.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking. He's Brazilian converted to Russian.
It's like
Then
Matty Cash. He's now plays for the Poland national team.
what the heck?
Yeah,
Matty Cash.
the Aston Villa right
Oh,
back.
Poland might not even qualify.
Yeah, he switched.
So
Uh, he switched to the Poland national team. So
I mean, he had a better chance with Poland than the
yeah,
stacked England team because it's just all right backs. But I mean, we'll see. I can't even name one Qatar player. That's the thing.
yeah, I can't either. So it'll be interesting to see how they do as the host nation, but who knows what's going to happen
Mm.
on that front. But yeah, that's World Cup coming up in 2022. We're excited. It'll be fun. But wanted to move over to this cool section. Obviously, since it was international break, there was no really any games going on. But really cool little section I guess we have planned out is FIFA players that are good in the game but are bad in real life, or vice versa. So they're good in real life but not too hot in the game. And this is just Tyler and I, our personal opinions, just playing FIFA throughout the years and different FIFAs we've played and playing with friends and just kind of knowing how FIFA is in general, like which players are better suited for the game slash which players are just better in real life. So just kind of a fun thing. So I guess I'll start it off. I'll go with Harry Kane. Good in real life. Obviously, this season's kind of an anomaly, but good in real life, historically speaking, but bad in FIFA. In a sense, he's bad in FIFA because, as we know, Harry Kane is not the quickest striker in the world. When you have, I guess, in his a couple of years ago in the heyday when you could have picked strikers that are a lot faster, you know, just the way FIFA is. I know they try to change it every year, but pace is really important in FIFA, and Harry Kane does not have it. You can still play with Harry Kane and get away because obviously, if you shoot with any type of goal with him, it's probably going to go in. But you need to play. You need to be a decent FIFA player to know how to use him. You can't just basically try to run with him and hold R2. You need to know how to use him. So that's why I'm going with Harry Kane. Good in real life, bad in FIFA. Just because the lack of pace lets him down.
I mean, like this whole concept, I was also thinking too. It's so interesting because it's going to kind of sway the opinions and like the players that people like for like a whole generation.
Yeah.
Because for for example, for me, I can pick like a similar scenario where Keylor Navas, like the keeper for PSG right now, he's great in real life. He's like one of the best keepers in the world. He was one of those standout keepers in the World Cup as well for Costa Rica.
Hmm.
And in game, he's terrible because he's kind of shorter than the average keeper, is around 6 feet tall, like barely. And in game, it favors the players that are kind of taller, faster, and that's kind of been like the trend throughout all of FIFA's. It's just kind of the ones who are kind of like the freaks of nature kind of do the best.
Yeah.
And I was always wondering, it's like, do these kind of trends kind of correlate to real life at all? It's like probably not, because then you can start seeing certain players that are kind of average in real life that are good in the game. Like Seydou Doumbia is really one of the best examples. One of the former Roma strikers. He is basically like if you played FIFA, everyone knows who he is. He's a striker, basically one of the fastest players in the game for a long time, and he was able to score just because the game's a little broken. If you all you had to do is tap a button to finish the ball, but in real life, you wouldn't really know who he is. He's never like a top goal scorer. He, I assume, rarely hits about double digit goals. But I mean, it's just not really newsworthy of a player.
Hmm.
So I was always kind of wondering about that too. It's like say you do Doumbia as like one of those players that just gets famous from like a video game, whereas in
Yeah,
real life, it's like no one knows about him. You don't see anyone with a Doumbia jersey like
yeah.
walking around.
No one
You see
knows.
players, Harry Kane walking around, but you don't ever see anyone using Harry Kane in FIFA though.
Yeah, especially in Ultimate Team where, it's Harry Kane at that point when you pack him, it's just like, oh, he's good SBC or he's good, can I resell him for a high price for like when SBCs come out so I can get a decent price on him. So it's because no one's using him because he's too
Yeah,
slow.
I literally
Uh,
did that this season.
yeah. So there you go. You have a case in point example right here. But Sado Dumbia, that's a good shout because I think I mean, you could honestly say that whole front three of Gervinho, Dumbia, and Ibarbo uh, I mean, do we ever talk about them in real life outside of just the FIFA nostalgia? I don't think so, you
He
know?
had Gervinho for a while on Arsenal, I'll say
Yeah.
that. The
Yeah.
forehead,
Mhm.
as KSI used to call
Yeah.
him.
But like, Barbo, I don't know. I or that Iturbi, you remember Iturbi from the
Yeah,
other fast? Like, what is he doing at this point? He's not doing anything. So,
E-Turbo.
yeah, exactly. So, Harry Kane's a good shot, and this next one, I guess might make a couple United States fans a little unhappy. Unfortunately, it's Christian Pulisic. I think he's a really good player in real life. He shows up in clutch moments. When he's not injured, he can perform really well. But in FIFA, just his body type in terms of him being kind of a shorter guy, but also not being the most physical of players. He gets brushed off the ball pretty easily, and his passing, I guess in FIFA just is never the best. He does have a lot of pace, but at least for FIFA, all of his other stats don't really match up to maybe some of the performances he puts in real life. So in FIFA, he's kind of what's the best way? He doesn't really perform the best way. I guess he doesn't really perform that well. If you watch him in real life, you would think the guy's probably, really good FIFA. Like on FIFA, he must be a really good player to use, but he's just not. He gets brushed off the ball easily. I don't think the passing's the best. And just whenever I used him, I've never had the best luck in terms of scoring a lot of great goals or creating a lot of chances. It just kind of disappears whenever I play with him on FIFA.
He's a little the number 10 of Chelsea,
Yeah,
but, I mean, Pulisic has a lot of intangibles that you can't really put data on, where it's
yeah,
just, he gets goals
yeah,
when he
clutch.
plays. He gets clutch goals, but there's no such thing as, like, a clutch gene in a video game,
Yeah.
unless all of a sudden he's is in high and low percentage scoring situations, they just all of a sudden find a way to score, and you just kind of rig it that way. I wouldn't be surprised if EA did something like that, but I mean, that's the kind of thing too, is always kind of like whenever I was talking to a friend about how do I know if a player is good in game versus in real life, it's like you kind of just look for the players with like a certain body type and certain height, certain pace. And that's why Christian Pulisic, for example, is just one of those ones where it's like you would think he's good, but in game, not the best.
Yeah.
And that kind of stems to one of like the questions I also had, which was like, what kind of player would you pick if you had like the ideal body type, like attributes and everything that would translate closest to real life? And I would think like Adama Traore because he's literally like 99 strength, 99 pace, like that kind of player. It's just his finishing in real life is not the best. And in game, you know, you can only make someone's finishing a stat between 1 to 99, and 99 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And even if you put him like a 76 or like a 65, that he's still going to score a majority of them compared to like real life. So
Yeah.
it always kind I guess that also kind of gives us some slight expectations on some of these players because whenever I see Dama play in real life, I'm always thinking, oh, he should be doing way better for Wolves because
Yeah.
in game he's insane.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of like that kind of bias I put on Adama, where I've seen what he could be at peak digital form.
Yeah, but in game or in real life, it just doesn't perform that well. He may have spurts doing that, but he can't do it consistently enough where he shows off that pace and skill and his other moves that he has.
Yeah, and even in real life, he has an added bonus of having baby oil on his arms, so he can't get grabbed. So you would think even with that, it would translate a little bit better. Like he's literally the prime player that you would wish you'd have in game and in real life, but it still doesn't even translate there.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one of the interesting ones I was thinking about too.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I think that's very true because any FIFA player you play with, they always pick Adama Traore in the beginning because he's really good in terms of the pace, skill, and everything. But
I
in real
still use
life,
him.
yeah, he's still a pretty decent player to use throughout FIFA. But in real life, as we've seen countless times, we've talked about him. He's not very consistent. And I wanted to put, I guess, my third player. I have four players on my list, but my third player hurts one. This one hurts to say is Anthony Martial. Uh, Really good actually in FIFA. Has been really good for ever since I would say FIFA 17, where he was OP. But unfortunately, in real life, pretty inconsistent. At times you get a really good Martial, but a lot of times you get a meh Martial. And in the game, for some reason, it just feels like the way his body is and the way his physical traits are. And I would say, obviously he has better finishing than Mars or better finishing than a Traore. He's got good skill moves. I believe he's like a 4-star skiller in the game.
Mhm.
Weak foot is about 3 stars, so not the best, but um, in game, he's got the dribbling, he's got the pace, he's got a decent enough shooting. So that's why he's so good in real life or good in FIFA. And also his strength. He's a pretty strong person on FIFA as well. So his strength also helps him out in FIFA. So for me, Anthony Martial, he's been one of the better players in FIFA for a while. I feel like since FIFA 17, he's just been kind of an OP type of player. But now he's just he's just cemented as a good FIFA player that a lot of people end up picking when they start out their teams early on.
I also still use Martial. Tony Martial, there we go. But it kind of also got me thinking, like the way you kind of described him, it almost sounds almost like a scout report at times, where it's like, this is a potential this player could have. And like these are all of his credentials that he's had in the past several years. Cause you can go back to, FIFA's from FIFA 17, FIFA 16, and you can see what Martial was like in that game. And he's almost the same
Yeah,
consistently. And you're thinking it's like, man, maybe one year he can just boom because he has all the everything you want in a player who plays up top is a winger, and in game it just is perfect. But like in real life, it's just something's missing. It's just you always wonder if the coach is like kind of thinking in the back of their head. It's like if
yeah.
the coach plays FIFA, is like, what am I doing wrong to this man? It's like
The
he could be a goal machine, but it's just does
attitude
not
has
have
to
that
be there at
confidence.
everything.
That's true. And then he also just keeps losing hair according to his picture.
Yeah.
But one of the things I also wanted to bring up too is that we're mentioning all these stats and ratings for players, but there are players in real life that play FIFA in real life, like professional players. Like Diogo Jota apparently is one of the best players in the world
Hmm.
for FIFA. He qualifies for foot champs and gets usually some pretty high rankings, which
Yeah.
is like a very competitive uh, league which within FIFA.
Hmm.
And it's kind of surprising. Like he was injured for a certain portion of his Liverpool career, and during that he just played FIFA.
Yeah.
And um, certain
I
players, like even that we mentioned, like Guilherme Ochoa, he streams. Like he literally
Yeah.
has a whole stream
Chicharito
deck.
play. I don't know if he
Chicharito.
plays FIFA, but I knew he streams. But Sergio Aguero plays FIFA. João Felix plays FIFA. I know Declan Rice plays a good bit. Trying to think who are the other big ones. But yeah, I like you said, there's a ton of big players that stream or play FIFA a ton.
Hmm. And it's always interesting to see like what they think of their own ratings. And I feel like one of the underrated ones is still Diogo Jota, just because he's still like 82 rated, which on average is like that's above average, just slightly above average. But given his season last season, you would think he's one of the top players at least,
Hmm.
like maybe 84 or something, which is kind of more higher above average. But uh, I always kind of wonder if these kind of players have any influence to EA or how the game's developed, because if they're playing it, they can literally tell the developers like, "Hey, give me a little boost here, give me something," because like something's not right.
Yeah,
Like I don't know why I'm still 82 rated.
yeah. But I know like the players they get the 99 rated card, so they're kind of golden in that sense. They
That's
get
true.
they're the professional player card whenever they
So
come out.
like what Yesh is kind of mentioning is like there's like a game mode within FIFA called Ultimate Team where you can just build your own squad. But professional players, you get the luxury of getting your own card, special card where it's just maxed out stats. So just 99 everything, and then it's just you. So if if we happen to be professional players, we'd each get like Yesh would get a Yush card, I would get a Tyler card, and then we'd be able to use it depending on whatever position we played. So, if Yush played striker, he'd get a striker Yush card that was just maxed out. And if I played goalie, I'd just get a goalie maxed out Tyler card. But
Mhm.
it'd still be our real life like height and weight and stuff. So I don't know how well I'd do at 5'8".
Yeah.
So it's kind of that as well. But it's always just an interesting dynamic just to see like the meta of seeing a professional player use himself and his own team in FIFA.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's pretty cool though. Like when you do, I know people get pretty excited when they see like who they get matched up with because if they have that card, only that person that that player you're playing against that player because there's no way anyone else could have that card.
Mm. And there's always one thing too. I always this is kind of like a slight pivot, but like we kind of mentioned what players we know are good, what players we know are kind of bad in the game. Do you think like if you name the current best team in real life right now, like it'd probably be like, Liverpool, PSG, Bayern Munich. Do you think the best players from or like the best team in real life could be on par or beat the best players from the game? Just like base stats, if that makes sense. Because like
Uh,
right now the best statistical goalie is like Oblak. But I would argue like one of the best goalies in the game that most people would use is like Ali Sun or something like that. So like it's kind of subjective here and there, but that's kind of like the more interesting things I was thinking about too, where it's like, hmm, it's
so
kind of a more abstract question, but
you take the real life Bayern Munich team and have them play against the best starting 11 overall of FIFA
yeah, or even face themselves. Actually, that'd be kind of interesting. Muller would not be very good.
in real life or in FIFA. You're saying
Yeah,
so they face each
but
other on FIFA essentially.
I guess so. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, if I'm getting okay. So let's say all right. So let's say it's like the Liverpool squad, and you want them to play against Bayern Munich on FIFA, or let me see. I guess maybe the better question may be if you had the starting 11 for a team, one of the top teams, and then have them play against one of the highest rating the starting 11, the highest rated players across the game, just their base card.
Hmm. Yeah,
Have them,
basically that's kind of what I was going at too.
okay,
Yeah.
face that in real life, like who would win? Oh, I feel like I'd probably still go for the team because at that point you got the chemistry going for you and everything. Um,
Hmm.
because I mean we've seen with super teams sometimes it's hard. You may have all the players on paper, but it's hard to mesh everyone together. I mean we're seeing that with PSG. PSG are the closest thing we have to that super team type flavor of just signing whoever you can and basically box office players across the starting 11. But how well are they doing in real life? They're doing decent, but definitely not clicking at an all-time level that everyone thought they were going to be clicking at.
That's also true. That's a good point. There's like kind of those intangibles that you can't really kind of spec out in a game.
Hmm.
Where you can put like the best players in the whole world just on one team, but will they work together well?
Yeah, in career
Probably
mode at
not.
least it works well.
Yeah. So that kind of answers that question.
I
But
always I always felt though whenever I did play career mode, I always felt like it took me whenever I signed a whole ton of players in the transfer window. I always felt like it took me about 2 or 3 games until I got really comfortable with the new team and could start scoring goals again. Um, I don't know if that's just FIFA being FIFA in the first couple of games and not letting you win because you signed all these players, or if that's legitimately the player trying to mesh with all the players he just got. So it's almost like real life where you have to get comfortable about like which player is going to be doing what and how to play each certain player. So it's all really interesting.
mhm. Hmm. That's it's so many like hypotheticals you can just draw from video games. But it's always wondering is like, is it all kind of justified? Is it like legit? I feel like it so far has been for like a certain bit
Yeah.
because a certain player is not going to get stats just randomly chucked onto them. There's
Hmm.
some reasons why Oblak is the highest rated keeper. There's
Yeah.
reasons why Messi is the highest rated player in the game. So Hmm, I don't know. So that's just like one of those interesting hypotheticals I could throw out there.
Yeah.
There is some there is some merit to even having FIFA and just playing it, because sometimes that's how you also learn about what players might be up and coming next.
Yeah,
Because
just
like,
by highest potential and, finding out about certain teams or certain leagues and then who are the best players in that league and then that can help you follow the league and then from there your fandom just kind of takes you from wherever you just started.
yeah, and that's how like certain players you might not even heard of in real life, but like a lot of people also know like Hachim Monsieur,
Mhm.
Mature, like the old AC Milan player,
Yeah.
or like what's another one that kind of fell off? Like Odegaard, I guess. Well, he's back now. He's at Arsenal, but for the
Yeah.
longest time he was just in purgatory, just kind of still finding his career.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I know
so
there's a ton of players that are out there. I was gonna put one other player on my list that I had was the last one was Nick Pope. Um, I would say he's an all right keeper in real life, but definitely the hype around him in terms of his real life form has faded away greatly. He was probably at his peak in the 2019-20 season. I think that was probably his best season with Burnley. But obviously, the hype around him has faded away, and I would say he's an average keeper in real life. He's nothing world beater like, but especially in FIFA 21, he was the keeper that was on everyone's squad and. Everyone was using him, and for some reason, he played almost like he was a 99 rated keeper, or, team of the season keeper. But he was still only, I believe, 82 or 81 rated on his base card. So that's one of those other ones where you have an opposite of Keylor Navas, where Navas is one of the best keepers in the world, but he doesn't play that well in FIFA. But Nick Pope is average in real life, but he plays like a world beater on FIFA, which is really funny.
I mean, granted, he did have that one season where he got the Golden Glove, but that was it.
Yeah.
And now he's just kind of like kind of meh, kind of average on
Hmm.
a kind of struggling Burnley side. But I mean, in game, he's still a god. 6,
Yeah.
7.
It was always funny because you'd have these squads. People would have 95 rated players across the board, all these special cards, and then you just have gold Nick Pope, 82
Just
rated.
yeah, just Nick Pope because he's huge,
Hmm.
and there's not really any other player like you would prefer a Nick Pope over a Keylor Navas,
Yeah.
which is the craziest part. Whereas that's where you kind of have to kind of remember it's like it's still also at points a video game. In
Hmm.
real life, I'd definitely take Navas.
Yeah. And it's always funny because then you get players that only play FIFA. So when they do watch real life, they're like, "Oh, why isn't so and so player not starting?" Well, it's they're not really good in real life, or they're not really good, yeah, in real life, but they're good in FIFA. So
Where it's like,
it's
why didn't that guy do a low driven shot? It's like
that person should have easily just rainbow flicked it over the other defender's head, fake shot, la croqueta into the inside, and then just driven it far post or something like that.
yeah.
Because you'll get that, and then you just got to realize, like, this is a game, so it's like obviously the stuff you do skill wise is either unrealistic or if a player tried doing that in real life, they'll probably get their legs chopped off by the defender, by an angry defender. So that's always the funniest thing because you see people on Twitter talking about, oh, why didn't so and so player do, like an elastico right here and then win around the defender? I was like, that's really hard to do. To do that in real life when it's like going 100 miles per hour, when you have like no stamina, it's pretty hard to do.
And then you got like 100,000 people watching you live, and then millions on TV. And if you just mess up or do something goofy,
Yeah.
you're gonna be on Twitter.
Yeah. Or like, what was the FIFA 19 skill mode? The tornado flick or the sombrero or what was it called?
I mean, both of those are actual skill moves in the game, but I
What was
think
the OP one?
it was the croqueta. It was
Oh, okay. I know there
because
wasn't there one where you flicked it and you just did like a crazy flick and then just cross it while it's still in the like a half volley cross.
oh, that'd be sombrero flick then.
Okay.
If you just kind of flick it above you and then just
Yeah.
but
So you see, the players are not doing that in real life. If they do, it's very, 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 very on a rare occasion that they have the time and skill to pull it off.
and have the cojones, the balls to even do it with
Yeah.
like Vinicius Jr. or like Neymar. But even you
Exactly.
see like Neymar doesn't really do it as much these days.
Hmm. Like, he probably knows now that, if I do it, and these players know if they do it, they're probably going to get hacked down the next time they get the ball or get like a, kind of a slightly harsher challenge the next time they get the ball. So it's
Yeah, you
kind of
never want to be the defender on the end of these.
yeah, it's never
You're just
fun.
gonna be You're gonna be in someone's highlight reel, like Jerome Boateng against Messi.
Yeah, so FIFA definitely there is good to kind of help you get started, but there's definitely, if you play too much of it, you kind of develop kind of an unrealistic mindset of like what's actually possible in real life in terms of what players can or cannot do. So it's always good just kind of keeping that perspective in there. But we wanted to just throw this fun section in there because it's fun, and we play FIFA a good bit, so it was kind of good to
Mhm.
kind of have the two worlds kind of mix in together. But um moving on, I guess, into the last section is our preview section. We don't have, obviously international break. Nothing else was going on, but preview wise, some decent matchups actually in the Premier League. Obviously, Liverpool Arsenal, the big Hollywood matchup, the big blockbuster one. But Leicester Chelsea is an interesting one because Leicester obviously are not doing too well, but Brendan Rodgers, his name has been really heavily linked to the Manchester United job. Recently, he said that he has denied all those reports and is focused on Leicester. Chelsea obviously are in the process of gunning for the title, trying to keep up the momentum of being in first place. So they're going to the KP, but Leicester haven't been too good this season. So I'll roll with Chelsea. I think they'll get a 2-1 victory over Leicester.
I was thinking as well, Leicester, not the Leicester from previous seasons. Right now, they're sitting in 12th place. And I feel like Brandon Rodgers would be slightly distracted at least with all these rumors. Because, like, if you think about it, like Manchester United, one of the biggest jobs in all soccer. Like, if you think about it, it's like top five, if not
Hmm.
top three, just because of the fan base, the history, the pedigree, and also just all the kind of responsibilities that kind of come with it. So, I mean, for him, he's probably thinking in the back of his head, is like, "Oh man," it's like, I personally say he should still stay at Leicester just because I feel like it kind of fits his wheelhouse about what kind of coach he is, kind of more developmental, kind of brings in the most out of kind of younger players or players that really don't have too much name and ego, and then he's kind of developing those. Whereas if we went to Manchester United, it's more about just winning, winning, winning no matter what. So, and then you're gonna have to deal with Ronaldo. So, on top of that, it's gonna be a big opportunity for him, but it's kind of distracting and not really his cup of tea, in my opinion. But I still think that's distracting enough, and it really is distracting him. Like despite what all the reports say, because if you think about it, if you had this job too offered to you, you'd probably be thinking about it too, going to bed, waking up. So the thing is, Chelsea right now, first place, they have like their goals in mind. Like they're trying to win the title. Obviously, they're going to be cruising in the Champions League pretty soon after week or match 5, I believe, coming up during Thanksgiving break. And they basically have only lost one game, whereas Leicester, they're kind of struggling. So I think I'm gonna agree with you, Yush. The very kind of struggling Leicester side, kind of distracted side, will lose 2-1 to Chelsea.
All right, yeah. So we're both going for 2-1 victories for Chelsea. I think they'll probably just keep on rolling as they normally do. But next game, two teams we don't normally talk about, but Aston Villa, Brighton. Obviously, Aston Villa in the spotlight because of Steven Gerrard taking over as their manager, and Brighton have been doing pretty well this season with Graham Potter playing some good stuff. Villa, this is Stevie G, his first game. I believe it's home game. Um, be interesting to see how he gets kicked on and how he gets stuck in as a manager. This is a big test. I think with the new manager bounce, I think he's going to have the place kind of bouncing with the players, the fan base. Everyone's going to be kind of ready to see what's going on. I know it's going to be a little bit of a pressurized situation coming back to the Premier League as a manager, but I think you're going to see enough in that game where I think, Aston Villa can win 3-2. I think it's going to be, not the most defensively organized game, but I feel like the emotion and the vibes will probably carry Aston Villa through to a victory.
I think so too. I feel like that new manager bounce is a real thing, and Steven Gerrard's going to come in and want to put a statement in this game against a Brighton side that's been surprising this season as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it'd be like a 2-1 to Aston Villa. But I will say Brighton, they kind of do play to they level their opponents. They're drawn against Liverpool, unfortunately. They drawn against Arsenal during their unbeaten run, Arsenal's
Hmm.
unbeaten run. But they have lost to like the bigger teams, like, Man City, but I think with this side, I it won't be enough for Brighton. I always kind of put them down, but I just feel like this Villa side, there's something to play for them.
Yeah.
Stevie G at the wheel, anything's possible. So I'm gonna give it a 2-1 to old Stevie.
Okay. I'm going 3-2 Villa. Tyler's going 2-1 Aston Villa, both picking up Villa victories. And then finally, the biggest game of the weekend, Liverpool Arsenal. Liverpool hosting the hot Arsenal right now on a huge unbeaten run at Anfield. Arsenal in the top four right now. Mikel Arteta has them clicking. They've been playing good stuff. Emil Smith Rowe has been kind of a superstar, one of the big, youngsters that has been making his name for Arsenal this season. Liverpool obviously have slipped up a tiny bit. They haven't lost, but they've dropped some points here and there where they probably should have won, where they lost a little bit of control in the game. But this will be an interesting matchup because as we've normally seen Liverpool Arsenal, it always lives up to like kind of a high goal scoring affair, a lot of fireworks. But recently, it's kind of been Liverpool just dominating Arsenal from the get go, and Arsenal not having even a chance to breathe. I think this game will be a little bit different. I think Arsenal will have the confidence and kind of you know the swagger about them that they're going to walk into Anfield, maybe not play the total complete Mikel Arteta way, but at least do enough, to be themselves competitive enough to stay in the game. So because of that, I think this game ultimately, I think Liverpool will win 2-1, but I think it will actually be a really close game. And I think Liverpool can probably nick a goal maybe late in the second half, probably around the 80th or 70th minute to win this game. But I think Arsenal, the way they've been playing, I think they can keep themselves in the game and maybe potentially, walk away with the victory. But I think ultimately Liverpool's quality might just be a little bit too much for Arsenal right now.
This is gonna be just all 2-1 predictions for me this week. Like, I'm gonna go 2-1 for Liverpool as well, and the reason why is because Arsenal, ever since their 5-0 loss to Man City, they haven't lost yet.
Yeah.
But since then, the best opponent they faced is Man City, and the next best is basically like Brighton or Tottenham. So I feel like they've also it's almost like fool's gold a little bit, where although we can clearly see they're doing way better since bringing in all the youth and they're playing a lot more expansive football, a lot quicker, a lot more identity to their play. This is gonna be a big test to see if they can actually stack up to like kind of the bigger teams. So Liverpool also coming off of a loss to West Ham, it's gonna be like a slap in the face. Like they can't be losing 2 games in a row or even dropping points 2 games in a row,
Hmm.
especially after kind of 5 games in a row as well, kind of conceding goals here and there. I think this is going to be a big statement game for Liverpool, especially at home at Anfield. So it will be a 2-1. It will be close. I agree with you, Yosh, on that. But I think this is going to be the end of a streak for Arsenal. Their unbeaten streak kind of ends here. And we're going to have
Mm.
to see how Arsenal kind of rebound from that going on from the rest of the season.
Yeah.
That's my, it's a hot take.
Do you think Liverpool go 2 up, and then they just concede a random goal, or do you think it's like 1-1, or Arsenal maybe take a 1-0 lead and then Liverpool bounce, fire back? I think it will be Liverpool takes the lead, Arsenal grab a goal, and then Liverpool grab that winning goal late on in the second half.
I could see a 2-0 first, and then Arsenal get a random goal just because of a defensive error or a weird call. Like that's basically been the trend of the past games so far for Liverpool. So I'll probably go with that just because of historical data and what we've been seeing. But I don't see Liverpool going down.
Mm,
I don't see them going behind at points in the game. It's kind of rare for them to happen. So I'll stick
yeah.
with that.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. This will be a fun game. We're both predicting 2-1 victory. We actually predicted victories for all the same teams. So we'll see if it actually comes true or which score lines come into fruition. But
Uh-oh.
it'll
You know what
be,
that means.
yeah, nils
We're
across
gonna
the
be
board.
all wrong.
Yeah. So it'll be a fun weekend to see what happens. It's nice to have the league play back in action. Premier League's gonna be busy. All the leagues are gonna be busy. But yeah, it'll be fun to see what happens. But that kind of wraps up season 4, episode 132 for us. As we always say, you can follow us at the Premier Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also watch video versions of this podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, The Premier Pod. And if you listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a review or a rating. It helps us out and gets us boosted in terms of seeing other people, catching on to the podcast and getting it out there in the world. But if you don't want to leave a review, simply just take the time to listen is more than enough. And also, if you want to share this podcast with someone that is interested in the Premier League or soccer in general, we greatly appreciate the support anytime we can get it or anywhere we get it. So thank you again if you've been sharing the podcast with anyone. But yeah, that kind of wraps up season 4, episode 132 for us. Thank you so much for listening. Peace.
Peace.